Ladies and gentlemen, to another episode, another week of the best bets here on the Field of 68. We are the three-man weave. I'm Jim Root, Kai McEwen, Matt Cox joining me as well. Shout out to BetRivers, the sponsor, powering this episode, powering this show, making it happen. Fellas, it's a limited Monday slate, so we can be a little more long-winded with takeaways if we feel like it. We have that power. Matt, you are hatted and suited down in Florida, so I'm going to go to you here. What did you see over the weekend? Do you have a new perspective now that you're viewing from a warm weather climate?
Yeah, Jim, whenever I come down here, it's always more optimistic, glass half full. Every team's really good. No team's that bad. So I think you'll see my takes skew very positive. And I think they're already pretty positive in general, but you'll really see that, I think, bear out the next couple of weeks. So I apologize in advance if that distorts any of your handicapping. But shouts to Mr. McKeon, who basically went toe to toe. Yeah, my takeaway is giving you some credit, specifically in relation to the Kansas effort at Kentucky. Man, I was really confident that the Big Blue Nation would come out and smack the Jayhawks. I put too many of my chips in that basket. Obviously, it's one game, so it doesn't mean I'm wrong. It doesn't mean Kyne's emphatically right. But of all the efforts that I saw on Saturday, especially given that the home court played pretty well in that cross-conference challenge, Kentucky was disappointing. So I got too excited too quickly. That's my takeaway, Jim.
Well, Matt, I won't be crowing because as soon as you crow in this business, you get hit. You get slammed the other way.
Humble yourself.
So I'll just tip my cap and say thanks, I suppose. I certainly did some wrong things on Saturday in the gambling space as well. So stay humble, stay frosty, whatever you say to
whatever K-Dot said.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah. Hey, my takeaways from yesterday, actually. Justin Moore came back from Villanova. Fantastic. They still lost to Providence, but good to see Moore back in the lineup. Actually started. I guess he's just ready to play full minutes. That's kind of crazy coming.
Played like 34 minutes.
It's insane. Coming off the Achilles. Wow, good for him. Also, another injuries don't matter spiel here. Tucker DeVries, Drake's best player, was out yesterday. They beat Belmont by 18 on the road. Burford for Illinois State, arguably their best player, out. They beat Southern Illinois, arguably the best team in that conference. JV McCollum, Michael Bear, out for Siena yesterday. Beat Marist easily. The injuries, Jim, sometimes they just don't matter.
They don't matter. Players don't matter.
It's really helpful when Tucker DeVries goes out and you somehow get Belmont to shoot 6% from three. 1 for 16. Yeah, sure. Okay. That's totally normal and relatable, of course. I wanted to shout out Justin Moore. Glad you hit that. And then also just some incredible individual performances from this weekend. Zach Edey came up just short of 40 yesterday, but he put up 38, 12, and 3, I believe. Julian Strother had 40 on Saturday for Gonzaga. AirPods, our boy Brandon Pajimski with 38 for Santa Clara. And Matt, maybe the most surprising 40-point game in college hoop in recent history. Dame Adelaide for Dartmouth had 41. You see that coming?
Dartboard? No, I didn't. It's a nice player though, Jim. He was like a kind of a breakout star last year, and then Dartmouth stuck to start the season, and now they're kind of like been better. And we remember Dame. It's Dame time.
41 was rather surprising because he hadn't scored 20 since the opening tip of the year. Not had 20.
That is odd.
He went and put up 41 in a non-overtime game. Rather shocking. All right. Shout out to those guys, though. Really, really impressive performances. Let's get into today's slate. It has some high-level games, but really not a deep one. So we're going to start at the top. Big 12 teams turn around quickly from the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Baylor at Texas. Texas is taking a little bit of money, going up from 3.5 to -4 right now at BetRivers.
Yeah.
I have a take on the total. I see that being chirped about in the chat. I'll save that. I'll go to you first if you have anything strong on the side.
Yeah, Texas taking money. Interesting here. Baylor, obviously winners of 6 straight, though the Arkansas game gave them a scare. Texas, Matt, on top of the Big 12, coming off a Tennessee loss. Baylor hasn't lost in Texas at Austin since 2019, but there's certainly been an upgrade to the arena, some more juice in that building, Matthew, we have heard. And Baylor's defense can be a bit of a sieve. In Big 12 play, it hasn't been good, especially inside. Can Texas guards get penetration? They do mostly pick and roll stuff, cutting stuff. Baylor guards those actions well, but the real advantage, I think, is in transition. Texas has been fantastic in transition this season. They want to get up and down. Baylor has been terrible. One of the worst transition defenses in the entire country. That is Texas' major advantage tonight. However, Matt, anytime you're giving me Baylor as a medium-sized dog against Texas, I'm probably going to take it. The matchups are scary, but I'm leaning towards the Baylor Bears.
I lean that way too. I think I came around more on Texas. I was probably too quick to write them off. I used to always misuse that. Anyway, just because of the whole Chris Beard thing, but they played much better. Obviously, the talent's very real. They're good. I think this line actually is a little short. I'm sorry, a little short. I just think that Baylor hasn't all the way proven that they're back yet. They haven't had, I guess, the Kansas game was obviously very impressive, right? But the Arkansas game I wasn't overly impressed with. Oklahoma, I guess, going in there and taking care of business there is commendable. I just think that Baylor's defensive issues, Kai, as you talk about, are not fully solved yet. And I think the transition stats are concerning, especially with how, Texas isn't looking to run feverishly, but they're very opportunistic. And we've seen Baylor, I think, give up some runs or have their own runs be stunted by poor transition D. I still think they compete here tonight, though, Jim. So I don't know. No action for me. I wanted to take Baylor, but I was I'm worried I'm jumping too giddy into the Baylor bandwagon. So I stayed away.
Yeah, and you could make a real strong buy low, sell high a little bit here with Baylor winning 6 in a row and Texas coming off getting thumped at Tennessee. Maybe just playing Tennessee is so difficult. You play anybody else, especially you go from Tennessee's defense to Baylor's defense, you'll probably have a much easier time. Kai, that transition stuff I think is really interesting because Baylor is playing so much slower in league play. It's almost like Scott Drew has realized our transition defense is pitiful. We should try to turn this into a half-court game and out-efficient teams in the half-court because we have Keontae George and Adam Flagler and LJ Cryer, and Bridges is playing way, way better. You're getting more from Langston Love. That offense is super, super potent, especially in the half-court. And so I actually do lean towards the under. I know it is almost 8 points below what KenPom has it listed at. It's kind of gotten to the point where I'd be dicey betting it. It opened 150s down to 146.5. That's shaky. But I still think Baylor's tempo is a real legitimate change. They are playing much slower. Look at their past 5 games. It's been crawls, even against some teams that like to run. Arkansas wants to run, and it was a 63 possession game with fouling late in that one. So I think it's a very deliberate decision by Baylor, and they're trying to slow it down. Even with some high efficiency expected, I would lean towards the under. All right, next up, one more Big 12 game before we get to an ACC showdown. Iowa State at Texas Tech. Matt, hard to figure out these teams right now. Iowa State, a 1.5 point road favorite here, but we don't know Caleb Grill's status for sure. Texas Tech has injuries of their own. Do you think the Red Raiders figured it out with a win this weekend and actually going to start getting some positive momentum here?
No, because they beat LSU. And what's our rule on this show? We very clearly stated LSU is just not a great team. However, I do think this is actually a pretty good time to back them. It's a good spot to back them. Not as a full fade of Iowa State, Kai, but I do think it's a fairly decent sell high. I think Mr. Goodman, our overlord, made a pretty good case that this is kind of the peak of Iowa State's run. I don't know if I'm fully buying a hard sell off. They're really good, right? But I think this is the absolute apex of their value. I don't think they're going to play any better, right? I don't think they're a top 5 team in the country, and they're basically being priced like a fringe top 10 team. But certainly not trying to back Texas Tech, who I've been emphatically out on as well. So, typical battle of 2 teams you don't really trust, one team I really trust but don't like the value on versus a team that I don't trust at all and actually has a decent, potential spot edge here. I stayed away here, so nothing for me.
With respect to Goodman, it's a reactionary take. They just lost by 17 to Mizzou. Caleb Grill was out. They're hurt. This team is hurt right now. And injuries is what's keeping me off Iowa State in this game. It's a really tough turnaround going from Columbia down to Lubbock. With Caleb Grill probably still out, with Kuntz still out, the rotation's shorter. They're definitely beat up. They are playing way better than Texas Tech, Jim, which is why I kind of still wanted to force an Iowa State bet. I agree with Matt. I don't really believe in the LSU win for Texas Tech. I still think this team's kind of struggling. I do think Papa Isaacs is going to play. I'm not great at guessing injuries. He was out last game. If he misses this, maybe Caleb Grill doesn't matter because Isaacs, I think, is more important to Texas Tech. They have to score. He's one of their best scorers offensively. Also, Iowa State beat this team by 34 in Ames. So either, number one, Iowa State just dominates them, and this is easy money at a pick, or B, there's major motivation here, and Texas Tech strikes back. We know it's a good home court. Shooting splits probably even out. Last game, 5 for 26 from deep for Texas Tech, 12 for 22 for Iowa State. It probably gets more to even here, especially on Texas Tech's home floor. I still lean clones, but I wish I knew more about the injury situation.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me. I would be interested in an under if both Grill and Isaacs are out, because I think they are just the biggest like gravitational shooting threat on each roster. Kalsher's up there for Iowa State too, but Grill, like that's what he's out there for. He's a shooter, runs the floor in transition, is always hunting that shot. And when you take him out, you can focus a little more on Holmes, focus a little more on Kalsher, and it takes away one more threat on the floor. Lipsy, obviously not a real perimeter weapon for them. And then Isaacs is really the only like high volume shooter for Texas Tech. So you take those guys out, and I think it's going to be kind of a cramped floor. Likely would be an under, but we don't know. They're questionable. As we do this at noon Central rather than right before tip, we have to deal with some sort of unknowns, and that makes me want to stay away. I'm not willing to back Iowa State as a road favorite without Grill, just like Kai. So sitting it out as well. We move on to another road favorite. That would be Virginia laying 5 points at Syracuse. Kai, I looked up the history here. I kind of in my head perceived that Bennett had solved the zone. I remember the Jerome Guy teams just shredding Syracuse's zone. But while they have won 8 of the last 9 outright, they're 2-3 against the spread in their last 5. Virginia is against Syracuse, so not a totally barnstorming performance. Actually, though, 5 in a row have gone over in this matchup, and 8 of the last 10. So I do think there is some solving of the zone that's happening, but Syracuse is finding a way to score over the top of the pack line. So there might be efficiency on both sides. How do you see this one?
Yeah, Virginia quietly going to win another ACC title. Matthew, your Duke Blue Devils aren't going to get there. No offense to Clemson. I think Virginia's going to win the league.
They're losing to Clemson right now.
Yeah, they're going to win it. They're 8-2 right now. They're a game behind. I think they're going to get there. They're also the only ACC team that ranks in the top 25 in KenPom. They're 13th. The next highest is 28th, which is Duke. Kind of wild to think about. Virginia's kind of a dominant team in the ACC. However, they're not great ATS-wise in conference. Lately, they've been a lot better. They're 4-1 against the spread of the last 5. But Syracuse covered last game. Virginia had that 23-point lead. Syracuse outscored them by 16 in the final 15 minutes, and they can shoot, Matt. Mintz, Girard, we know they can shoot. Can they defend Virginia? Can they keep them off the glass, keep them at bay inside the arc? Probably. The Who's sliced them up from deep in game 1. They didn't get success inside the arc. Maybe Syracuse can keep it close here in the Carrier Dome. I kind of lean towards that way. 5 is a pretty borderline spread for me, though, in terms of taking it.
Yeah, it's a little too low. Syracuse is one of these teams that's starting to let their freshmen play a lot more. Like Malik Brown got the start last game. He had a really nice outing. He's been playing better. It's kind of similar to my narrative I've had about like Ohio State and Purdue at spots. Like I like backing the home team, home dog, especially when they're a younger team, right? I think they tend to crack more on the road, and I think they tend to be energized and just play more comfortable, more at ease at home. And certainly in the Carrier Dome is a good spot here. Kai, I agree. I think the shooting can maybe loosen up the pack line, but I don't know. I feel like we regurgitate that take a lot against Virginia, and teams just end up, shooting a poor percentage because they defend so well and they contest so well. I like Syracuse, Jim. That's where my heart of hearts is screaming. I'd like an extra point or two, but the market and the odds makers said no. So I stayed away.
Yeah, I lean Syracuse too. Also gut sense of like, this is when Boeheim gets a big home win at the Dome, and we get this bubble narrative going. Like right now, they're 13-9, but the actual tournament profile is not good enough. Like it's nowhere near bubble ready. You need some wins like this to actually stack and get into that conversation. I wouldn't be surprised if they get it. Astute point from Kyle CM in the chat. The Syracuse team is taking way less threes. Turns out when Buddy Boeheim's not launching 15 a game, you take fewer threes. Their efficiency from the arc is pretty much fueled almost entirely by Girard. Bell has been solid, but it's like, is Girard hitting or not? They don't have the same breadth of shooters. Like, they had Swider last year and Boeheim. Like that team was lethal from all over the floor. Maybe not quite as much this year, but the spot really makes me lean Syracuse. I did not end up coming up with a bet on that one though. All right, last one before Chat Mob, guys. Surprising. Slipped in a MEAC one here.
Yeah,
the 2 preseason favorites in this league, NC Central and Norfolk State, actually looking to keep up pace with Howard and Maryland Eastern Shore. Kai, I don't think we expected UMES to be atop the league, but they're actually on the outline in the second half of the show here, so we'll get to them. But I'm starting with these two. Norfolk State, 5.5-point home favorite against NC Central. What do you got for us?
Yeah, Norfolk, not nearly as dominant as expected in MEAC play thus far. They're just 2-4 against the spread, which is very strange from where my expectations lied. They have the best offense in the league, but their defense has not been as great. Teams are just hitting shots against them. They play sort of a more packed-in style of defense. NC Central has a lot of talent. They have very good guard play. I do think they can hang here and make Norfolk pay on the perimeter, Matt, but it will take some regression. They've shot way under their average in league play. Their three-point shooting has been brutal in the MEAC. On the other end, NC Central has the best defense in MEAC play. Tremendous job at defending without fouling, which is key against Norfolk. I do kind of lean towards NC Central in this one. I'm always kind of scared to fade Norfolk in the MEAC, but like I said, they haven't been covering games so far this year, so maybe it's an okay thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty dominant, at least relative to my expectations in non-conference, but I talked about this with some of the Ivy League teams, right? I mean, Yale is kind of an example. You get into league play when, whether the coaches, there's a lot of continuity, everyone knows each other's stuff, and Norfolk is one of those teams that I think has a very unique defense, right? And I think a lot of the teams in that conference are able to, execute at a better rate than some of those bye opponents that just kind of show up and like, oh, wow, what's this weird, defense? And it takes a while to get acclimated, and thus Norfolk plays really well. Now they get into familiar league play. That edge is negated. Obviously against Lavelle Moten, one of the best coaches in this conference, if not the best, most established. I tend to think there's an edge there. So don't want to take the 5 because I just still think Norfolk's a little bit more talented, Jim. But that's where my gut and my slight value radar is going off on the road team here.
Yeah, it's harder to lay points with teams in the MEAC and the SWAC. I think they're just kind of feisty. The familiarity you mentioned matters. Although last year Norfolk hosted NC Central and won 75-46, like just absolutely blew them out of the water. So a blowout is possible, but I don't really see it in the cards. It would surprise me in this one. I'm hoping Norfolk rallies. I've got some preseason Norfolk to win the MEAC future money, and they definitely look like an underdog at this stage. But I'm still optimistic that they can revert to having the best talent in the league with one of the best coaches at the very least, might be the best coach. So I'm gravitating towards NC Central on the spread, but not betting it. Just don't have a strong enough opinion on it.
Interesting spot here. Kind of odd. Sorry. NC Central's off for like a week and a half after this game, while Norfolk, I think, goes to that MTE in New Jersey. I guess nothing like there, but just weird. The HBCU challenge, right? Yeah. 2 weeks off. Odd. And like late in January. Okay.
Yeah. It's certainly not finals, but who will? All right, Matt, you're my chat mobber, my chat czar. What do you got questions rolling in here?
Well, I mean, we could just hit the what's not on the outline, which is basically, I don't know.
Dodge those best bets if you can. Dodge them.
I'm trying to landmines. Chicago State, Citadel, best bet there. We're talking about UMass Morgan State. It's on the outline.
Spoiler.
Talked about Oral Roberts on the outline. Coppin State. Yeah, let's talk Coppin State, who has been a disaster, by the way. What happened to this team? It's one of the bigger,
I don't know,
head scratching conundrums I can't solve. So yeah, as a result, Kai, this spread seemed low to me, but maybe it's not given that how bad they've been. So -6, Kai, landing against Delaware State. Your thoughts?
It seemed low, but I didn't play it because I don't trust Coppin State. How can you lay anything with this team right now? They competed for a half last game against, I forgot who they played, Asian Shore, I think, and they got absolutely laid over in the second half. Can't play defense, brutal. Someone asked about Delaware State team total in the chat. I don't know. I think Delaware State scored over 71 just twice all season. Their offense is pretty brutal. So I'd always kind of steer a little bit or be a little wary of that, taking their over team total. But if any team's going to allow it, it's Coppin because their defense is that bad.
Yeah, last 4 games, Coppin lost by 17 to Morgan State, 31 to Norfolk, 14 to Howard, 19 to Eastern Shore. Like, they have been abysmal.
Really bad.
They can't defend, true. And their offense has also been nightmarish in league play. Like, super reliant on Sessoms and Tark, and those guys haven't really been able to create as much. Steers did return last 2 games. He missed one in the mix there, but obviously it hasn't helped. Let's look at the recent results. Something's going on there. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like the juju around Coppin State. So I think it's low, but I prefer backing Delaware State at home. They've been competent there. On the road, not as much. We'll sit it out. It's not a great slate, as you can tell by the amount of fence riding we are doing here. We do have best bets. They're coming, but not yet. Matt, anything else in the chat?
Well, 2 more I think that were asked about, but are not on outline. Loyola Maryland, Colgate. I mean, God, I would lay 30 against Loyola Maryland with this Colgate team. It opened 17.5. It's dropped to 16.5. I get the large dog conference angle for the smart money that hit the Greyhounds, Jim, but definitely not where I side here. I'm on toothpaste.
Yeah,
I
think
like
Loyola's
toothpaste.
going to smartly, astutely try to slow it down with the Princeton stuff they run offensively, but Colgate's too well coached. I think the offense could just light them up. I would lean towards Colgate. Get right's the wrong word, getting right at home, but they just played Lafayette, who's like the assistant of Colgate's head coach. So it might be kind of nice to play a team that they don't have as much familiarity with.
Game 1, Colgate scored 1.5 points per possession. They won by 35. Loyola cannot stop them.
I don't think I can score either. I don't really trust their guards. Back to the outline, Jim. I think that there's one more game we want to hit, but I don't think anyone's asked about it.
All right, maybe we can.
There's one game that's not covered in best bets and outline, but we'll get back to round 2. I'll holster it.
All right. South Dakota State at Missouri, Kansas City, UMKC, whatever they're going by these days, just Kansas City. The KC Roos, they are a 2-point home favorite. Matthias, I was rather surprised to see that. I have an opinion on this game, but also some mitigating factors to that. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I mean, every spread I see with South Dakota State involved in it, I'm always like, really, that's the spread? And I'm still harkening back to the part of the year when South Dakota State beat Boise at Boise. That's
like the first game of the year,
second game of the year, a game after they played Akron in overtime a day before. And they basically have one guy out since that initial start. Easley's out, but now they have Alex Arians out, Kai. So I'm really chomping. Yeah, Luke Apple's been out, but I've been chopping at the bit to back this team. But I think the injuries and to some degree the youth has led to some inconsistency this season. You're kind of seeing the same thing with North Dakota State. They're a team that's kind of turning over their roster this season. Zeke Mayo has been awesome, but he's still very erratic, and I don't all the way trust him. However, I do trust him against South or Summit caliber defenders. I think that's why you've seen his production sprout in league play, just because the defense here, as we know, is very, very optional. UMKC, though, does defend. It's kind of their MO, and I think they are scrappy. I can't keep up with their injuries. I basically don't care about their injuries. As you mentioned on the top of the show, they don't matter. They definitely don't matter for this team. I kind of like South Dakota State at the number, but I'm not going to back it because I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, I remain frustrated, the Jack Bunnies. So much so I can't even take them as a dog against UMKC. Injuries, like Matt kind of said, Apple's been out most of the year. Easley's been out forever. He's their best shooter. Alex Arians missed the last 2. He might miss tonight. They've basically played a 6-man rotation last 2 games. It's their 3rd straight game on the road. They just have to be gutted right now. They're just coming off an overtime loss as well. And UMKC is a mystery team, man. They're volatile. Their guards are awesome. Shamari Allen and Raquandis Mitchell have been incredible this season. They can score 20, 30 any given night, despite their offense being able to stagnate occasionally. It's a hard team to figure out. But they have been the much better team in league play by far. Look at the efficiency numbers. UMKC's been way better than South Dakota State. Their defense is tough. They crash the boards really hard, and you can't really score inside against them. And that's a problem when you want to run offense through Dentlinger. It's going to be a big challenge. I lean towards KC here. I think there's too many injuries on the South Dakota State side.
Yeah, so I started writing up South Dakota State +2 here for Action Network, and as I went through it, I just got spooked by the schedule. 3rd road game in 5 days.
Schedule's tough, yeah.
That's really difficult, and then also the injuries. They're playing, like you guys said, they have basically 2 guards in the rotation. Mayo's playing every minute he can handle. He's averaging 25, 6, and 5 over his last 4. Impressive stuff. He seems to be blossoming into the star we thought he could be, but I think the workload could catch up to them in the second half. So I took South Dakota State +1 on Action Network in the first half because I think, if anything, they'll get a strong effort in the first half, but then the overtime, the schedule, the depth will wear down and catch up to them in the second half. So that spooked me off the full game. I would just go first half if you're going to bet that one. Kai may have it actually figured out, and we're being too stubborn to our South Dakota State rating, Matt. That could be the case.
Hey, quick angle here too. Last 3 games, both the Idiaru brothers, the German brothers, Precious and Promise, have both started together. UMKC is 3-0. Coincidence?
They're pretty talented.
Yeah, they're good.
They started one because Makeba was out, right? The best, arguably their best
big
player.
Yeah, who just came back.
And looks pretty solid. So, Matt, we thought they were significantly worse without Anderson Kopp, but they seem to have solved that a little bit. They've had enough time without him to figure out an approach.
Yep.
There is a question about the total in this game. It's low. 129.5 is low. I'd lean towards the over, but I got nothing there. Efficiency could be bad.
Yeah, South Dakota State's actually been way better defensively in league play because they're playing a lot bigger. Like 3 through 5 is actual forwards.
They they actually have pretty good size.
So yeah, I don't know. Nothing strong enough there to really recommend one. Maybe a lean towards the under, but not great. All right, next up, UMES at Morgan State. Eastern Shore, like I said, they are atop the league right now, tied with Howard at 5-1. Rather surprising to see them in that position. Morgan State has been good too in league play, but struggling lately without Malik Miller and other assorted injuries. Matt, that gives us Eastern Shore, the Hawks, as a road favorite here, -1.5. What do you think of that line?
I don't know. Morgan State's been weird too. Like, there's a few MEAC teams I think I have a decent beat on, but the two teams involved here, I have absolutely no read on whatsoever. I still think Morgan State's a little bit underpriced. God, I can't believe they're a home dog here. I think I just have to, on principle, lean that way. But Jim's right. Like, I think some of these low major teams, your preseason priors, you got to be able to throw them out quicker than I certainly have been. I still lean Morgan State, but it's impossible to be confident given how they played and given how scrappy UMass has been.
Well, it's because they're hurt. If they were healthy, absolutely you take Morgan State here, but you can't trust them. The injuries. Turner and Miller have been out several games. They need them. They need them a lot. They just lost Delaware State.
Still hasn't played this year.
Morgan State just lost Delaware State. They're not at their top form right now. I know they beat Norfolk. That was a really weird game. UMES has looked like the best team in the MEAC so far. Crafton has done an incredible job there. Also, a reminder, this team beat Temple at Temple this season. They're kind of good. It's surprising. I don't know how they're doing it. It's defensively motivated. They're tough defensively. They press. They're very good at it. They're 9th in the country in points per possession allowed when pressing. They will force turnovers in this game, especially without Malik Miller. I'm not looking to step in front of them right now. I stayed away.
Yeah, Kai, the Morgan State over Norfolk result, it might have something to do with Norfolk being 0 for 13 from 3 and Morgan State being 12 for 26.
It was a kind of a total fluke, and it's probably boosting Morgan's ratings higher than they should be right now.
Yep. I kind of think, given these current health status of the rosters, no Malik Miller from Morgan State, that's bad news. I would take Eastern Shore here. I just think they know who they are. They brought back a lot from that team last year. It was really, really good in the conference, and it kind of caught up with them a little in league play. They didn't have a lot of size. They added some size this offseason. They're still not huge, but they've got like versatile wings that can guard a bunch of different positions, and size isn't going to kill you against Morgan State in this league. So lean towards UMES. Next up, Chicago State, the Citadel. One of these weird non-conference games because Chicago State needs to play somebody at this point. Actually really good lately, though. Chicago State 9-3 against the spread, covered 3 in a row. Seems like the spots are helping them, Kai, where they're playing a game that's important and the other team is stepping out of league play for like a whatever game. How do you see this one shaping up with the Cougars on the road getting 3 points at the Citadel?
Yeah, Chicago State's been awesome lately, man. They're 10-4 against the spread in their last 14. They have 3 straight covers. These teams that play them, they just don't really care about this game. It's a non-conference game. It's a weird throwaway. A team like Citadel is not making the tournament as an at-large. There's no reason to really get up for it. And frankly, Chicago State, the name kind of carries an air of, oh, this team sucks. We don't really need to bring our A game here. But Chicago State's better than the Citadel. One could argue this year. They certainly have been lately. They are ranked higher in KenPom, I believe. I'm surprised Citadel's taking a bit of money. I know Chicago State's been kind of on a world tour on the road. I don't think that matters. I think they're used to it, man. That's just what they do at Chicago State. They also have a couple familiar faces for the Citadel. Maybe there's an angle there. Cardette, their best player, played for Samford. He's been excellent this season. Brent Davis is a transfer from Citadel, been one of their best players as well. Those two, plus Corbett, plus Weaver, that is a talented core. Chicago State has some guys. They have a glass edge too. They have a sheer motivation edge too, in my opinion. I like the Cougars here. My best bet is Chicago State +3.
I love it. I mean, I looked at the minute counts last game. They played Aurora, Kai, or I don't know, is it a D3 or NAIA, whoever the hell that is. And on Saturday, their big, it was core 3 you mentioned, only played like 20-ish minutes. So that was my concern. It's like, they're going to go home and play this stupid throwaway game. Yeah, it's mostly rest. That's my point. Like, with such a short rotation, you played at Stanford on Wednesday. You competed your heart out. You played Coastal. You won at Coastal 2 years before that. You come back and play your third game in the week at home. It's a nothing game. You don't want to wear out your stars before you then go to the East Coast to play Citadel if you're looking to back them here. Looks like they didn't. So I feel like they're going to be, I don't know, somewhat rested. And you're right. I think the bigger point is like, who the heck matters? How many games they played in how many days? Like, look at their entire schedule all the way up until this year. They've played well in every spot that seems like a bad spot. They're just kind of hearkening They're kind of harnessing that, like, back against the wall type thing. And I think how you mentioned the better point is that the teams playing them don't, especially the mid majors, there's nothing to lose. The Citadel loses to Chicago State. There's no loss for the Citadel at all. Like, it means nothing to them. So I kind of think that negates any potential rest disadvantage that the Cougars encounter throughout this, whatever the hell they're going to play the rest of the year.
Yeah, Citadel just lost to Mercer on Saturday. They play kind of a semi-rivalry game on Thursday against VMI. I don't think they grinded a bunch of tape on Chicago State yesterday. I don't think there was like the urgency of quick turnaround for a game that is in the non-con. And I genuinely believe Chicago State has better talent. You look at where the transfers came from. Citadel has a couple down transfers as well. Ash and Morgan are from Iowa and Notre Dame, but they were walk-ons at those places. They weren't like some superstars. Now they're big pieces of the Citadel. I definitely like Chicago State here. I'm with Kai, especially with ticking up to 3. I had seen an opener of 2. Surprised that the Citadel took money. I'm definitely
3.5. Wow.
Back there with Chicago State. Last one on the outline: South Dakota at Oral Roberts. The Eagles are running away with this league. They're already up by 4 games. It looks completely inevitable that they will have a regular season championship completely unchallenged. But Matt, they had a little bit of a scare this weekend. They didn't totally dominate for one of the rare times in this league. South Dakota, I would try to make their trending up case, but I don't think I totally can.
I can't.
Is it just like the lines have gotten too inflated for Oral Roberts and you want to look on the other side? Or where do you land? Oral Roberts minus 15.5 right now.
Yeah, I kind of think this. I mean, South Dakota, I was selling a little bit this season, but you look at the roster. I mean, it is talented. And Joe, I'm with you. I was trying to find the evidence of an upswing, and AJ's been.
That's really hard to do.
They've covered 3 straight.
It is. They have covered 3 straight. I think they're starting to climb there. However, I look at like Plitzowite's stats, and I look at some of the other guys who I think like they're key cogs. And yeah, I mean, they've been really solid. I just think that they've been solid relative to ATS expectations because they're so cheap in the market. So I think they are still really cheap in this spot. I mean, a conference game getting 16.5 against Oral Roberts, even as dominant as they've not been invincible, right? They almost lost to UMKC at home. They just had a close encounter the game before that. They've certainly put teams to sleep in 2 seconds too. So I think I would lean South Dakota, but I'm not going to bet it. I mean, Oral Roberts terrifies me. And Jim's right. He mentioned the second half splits for Oral Rob. They are just, they don't go away, right? They come at you with depth. I think teams just get demoralized by the time you're down 20, 15 the second half, and they just keep pouring it on. It gets to 25 and 30. That's why I don't like fading this team.
Yeah, spread's big, but Oral Roberts is scary. However, they are 5-4-1 in Summit play.
Yeah,
ATS.
not invincible.
They can be covered against because those spreads are so inflated. Like I said, South Dakota's covered 3 straight. Maybe they're starting to click a little bit. The talent's always been there. Arguably the best backcourt in the league with Parrott Hunt, with Archambault, with Plitzowite. That's a dangerous combination. Their defense is really bad, though. Really, really, really bad. And Oral Roberts is going to shred it. Max Aceman is going to tear him up. They're a well-oiled machine. Also, Oral Roberts is the best defense in the Summit, too, right now. They guard the 3 well, which is basically how South Dakota scores. If South Dakota has a cold night from downtown, it's done. They're down by 30. If they're hot, they can probably keep this one close, keep it in single digits. In those situations where shooting variance is king, I kind of stay away, Jim.
Yeah, I if you're going to bet South Dakota, I feel like first half, you're getting close to double digits, and that's the splits with Oral Roberts really indicate that you don't want to fade them in the second half. Like, they have been ridiculous. Hey, Matt, if I made you guess who the second place guy for KenPom Player of the Year in the Summit League is, who would you say? Ace is first. I'll give you that.
Is it Connor? Mr. Vanova?
Mr.
So
Vanova.
Good. Look at his stats.
He's
last
been a
5.
Clear all-conference type of guy in this league. Zeke Mayo and first-round NBA draft darling Grant Nelson coming in at 4th there in that race. He's good. He's not a first-round pick. But, yeah, ultimately it would be South Dakota first half or nothing on that one for me. All right, Matt, anything else in Chat Mob Part 2? I saw a question about futures. I have 1 or 2 that I think maybe are worth looking at, but any other games that people are asking about?
Jackson State Southern, Mr. McKeon. Southern took money up to 9. Thoughts? Too high? It's the Fighting Mo Williams?
Yeah, I kind of lean towards Jackson State on the number, but Southern is the best team in that conference, and they can lay over anybody. It's just kind of a will they, won't they type of thing. I'm staying away.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't... Okay, Jim.
The lowest rate of blowouts in the entire country is the SWAC.
Makes total sense. Yeah.
Don't have many of them. So you don't want to bet like double digit spreads in that one or close to.
No lead is safe. No team can secure a lead that requires ball handling and free throw shooting. And every team here struggles to do that. And every team here can pressure and, create havoc when they need to. So yeah, I think every game kind of trends toward pick 'em at some point. I like that angle, Jim. I think that's it. I think the best bets. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we have best bets. Let's do it. We can talk futures too.
Someone asked about futures, and I just wanted to say is going to be blasphemous to come out of my mouth, but Creighton at 45-1, I think is pretty good value. I think they're going to go on a run in the Big East here. They look really good. They're 11th in Ken Palm now. You're getting them at 45-1. I think that's pretty solid. I don't know if you guys have any teams that jump out to you, but that's the one where I just feel like it's not really aligned with where they should be by the start of the tournament, at least in my perception.
What's Oral Roberts at? Let's just harken back to what we just discussed. I think they can make a Sweet 16 run. So you're looking for like a Final Four. Yeah, that's probably a better. If you're throwing a Hail Mary, don't throw a title Hail Mary, but throw a Final Four Hail Mary with the Bobs.
You're wasting your money at Caesars. You get 500.
I don't think so, man. Like their roster is Asmus. Like their second banana is Isaac McBride, a top 50 recruit who played at Kansas, just never got on the floor because I think he was hurt and was played over. Vanover is like
they're a
power 6 dude.
But they're a 12 seed. You can't be seeded at 12 and expect to make the Final Four.
500-1 make the Final Four. They've already made the Sweet 16 with Asmus as the lead guy. I don't think that's
Sweet 16.
It's not bad.
This team is definitively better than that team.
I'm just saying. I think the eyes are sometimes the stomach's bigger than the eyes sometimes. Is one.
If you get 500-1 with Sweet 16, you will make money. That's
right.
Yeah, but I don't think you should make bets to plan on hedging them out. I think that's minus EV long run.
I think it's negative unless you have a large portfolio to where maybe you also have they're 500-1 to make the Final Four, but they're playing a team you have to make the title or to win the title. Like I have a whole crap ton of futures, and there's like 4 teams in there that I don't have any of. That if they make if that's the Final Four, then I'm totally screwed. But I'm hoping that I've got enough coverage elsewhere. We'll see.
That's a good point, Kyle. You have to ask yourself, do you think this team can actually win the bet I'm taking? Like, I actually do think Oral Roberts can get to the Final Four. Obviously, it's not likely, but I don't think it's completely ludicrous. So
could they do what Davidson did with Curry and make
VCU I mean, that VCU is a little more Cinderella, but I think this team's better than VCU was that year. So I don't know. Maybe I'm off my rocker. Could be.
All right. That's it. We can go to best bets.
That's all I got.
Kai, you are leading us off for best bets. I know you already revealed it, but
Chicago State, the Cougars, +3.
Boom.
Taking my best bet, taking Alabama State on the road at Florida A&M. Team just came from Bethune-Cookman. Alabama State showing signs of improvement. I kind of was really high on this team preseason. Madlock and company has been disappointing. I think they really were just tough. They struggled really, really badly against top-end competition. They just don't have any size. I think they've come down to the SWAC where their lack of size is sort of neutralized, and I think their just energy and the way they play has played better. And I don't believe in this Rattler team. We talked about how bad they were all offseason. I know they're well coached, but I think this is just I'm getting the more talented team in a pretty good spot at a pretty good point of their trajectory. So give me the road favorite. I know I missed 1.5 of value. I think it opened 1. It's up to 2.5, but I'm going to lay it here with the Fighting Madlocks.
Attaboy, Matthew. I'm also in the SWAC for my best bet. It is Alcorn State +5. Another one I wrote up a little more extensively for Action Network if you have so desire to read further thoughts. But again, I don't think there's going to be a lot of blowouts in this league. Grambling's earned the right to be favored, but I think it's just too many points. Alcorn's going to play a really compact style defensively, force you to shoot over the top. Hopefully that takes away Cartier Gordon, who is just a ridiculously dominant presence in this conference. Like he's not fair. 6'9", 240 skilled big guy. Yeah, that's not fair at all. But I think they can force a little bit of turnovers. I love Byron Smith, the coach for Byron Smith's Prairie View. Matt, help me out. Who's our Alcorn coach? Just took
Bussy.
Bussy, thank you. From the Byron Smith tree, Landon Bussy. Yeah. So the Braves +5 on the road. Give it to me. That's the best bet. All right. Anything else, fellas? I believe that's it for today. Softer
go
slate,
action.
Of course. Go Swaction. Go me action. Enjoy all that tonight.
Action
Chicago State action.
Also independent action. Yes.
Yep. We'll be back again tomorrow. The slate expands. Many games, bigger games, better games. We'll discuss those. Same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central. We'll see you then. Good luck.